Every tree has roots, every life has branches, and every adoption has a story. Some stories begin with questions, some begin with loss. All of them are rooted in love and the search for connection. This is Janet Monroe, and this is Roots and Branches Adoption Stories, a podcast where real stories take root and grow. Because the more we share, the more we understand, and understanding helps us grow. Now, here's Janet Monroe.
Hello, and welcome to Roots and Branches Adoption Stories, right here on K-Fred Radio. I'm your host, Janet Monroe, birth mother, storyteller, and someone who understands that adoption doesn't end at placement. It echoes across a lifetime. This show is here to explore those echoes, the joy, the loss, the identity questions, and the healing that come when we finally tell the truth. Before we begin today's story, I just want to share something with you. We just reached 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Now, that might sound like a small number, but to me, it's 100 people who chose to listen, 100 people who believe these stories matter, and we're just getting started. My goal is 1 million subscribers because that means these voices are reaching the people who need to hear them the most. So if you haven't already, you can find us at www.youtube.com/@rootsandbranchesas. Okay, so today we have a story that begins in 1973 in England at Lambeth Hospital. The Victorian-era building that made our guest feel a little bit Oliver Twistish when he researched it later in life. Chris was adopted at birth into a loving home, solicitor father, schoolteacher mother, and an older adopted brother. On the outside, everything looked solid, but by age 8, something shifted. Chris, welcome. I'm so glad that we're here today and able to go ahead with this. And I'm really looking forward to hearing about your story.
Thank you so much, Janet. It's a really privilege to be here, and congratulations on your 100 subscribers. That's great to hear. So big congratulations. These stories need to be heard, I think, and you're giving a voice to people that are going to listen, I'm sure. So big congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And Chris, let's start at the beginning. So you mentioned being born at Lambeth Hospital and later researching it. What did you find out? What did that discovery stir in you?
Yeah, I've always known I'll start the podcast off with this. I've always known I was adopted from a very young age, and it's something that's always fascinated me as a child. And I was always brought up knowing this, but I didn't know too much about my history. But then when I discovered, I wanted to look further back into my adoption story. So I looked into Lambeth Hospital quite thoroughly and found out it was London's last ever poorhouse. The actual building I was born in was a poorhouse, which somehow seemed appropriate to me, I guess. And so hearing that fact was quite interesting for me. I don't know if your listeners know, but Lambeth is a big area in South London. I was born less than a mile away from the Houses of Parliament, so Westminster. So that's where my story began in 1973. August 1973, I was born, and I was immediately adopted.
What you said that you knew you were adopted from an early age, but what did adoption actually mean to you back then? What did that word mean?
Until a certain incident at my primary school happened, I was always told, I'm adopted and my parents aren't my parents. But being a 5-6-year-old, you don't understand the functionalities of relationships or any of that kind of stuff. You just say, okay, I'm adopted, and just go along, and just you don't kind of grasp what it really means, I think, until. And my incident happened when I was 7 or 8. It was my second year junior school at, and I was brought up in a town called Beckenham, which is quite a nice area of South London. And I was at school there one day, and I think I just mentioned it to just a kid in my class. I said, "Oh, I'm adopted," not really understanding what it was or the kind of nuances of what it was or anything. And but I remember this kid's reaction to when I said it, and it was the most awful experience of my life. That's when I realized that things were very, very different within my upbringing. I was the only child in my entire year that was adopted. No one else in my school really I knew was adopted as well. But that incident in that classroom had a profound effect on me and kind of made me realize that I'm very different. And from that moment on, my schooling was horrific. It changed my whole attitude to being quite a fun-loving kid into someone that just turned into an absolutely nervous wreck. I can't quite describe it, Janet, but it did. That incident had a profound effect on my ability within school to learn. Learning was not a priority when I was younger, because my head was just so scrambled, I think. So that was the first time that I realized that adoption was a real thing. And being such a young child, I just didn't understand what it meant. But that incident just made me realize that there's some issues here that I needed to address.
So I was reading the other day a story about a gentleman who was adopted as well. He was adopted straight from the hospital. And he said that he was chosen by his parents, and he felt so good. And he felt like a superhero, that he had the cape and everything. And then he went to school, and he started school. And that the first day of school, everybody has to say something about themselves and stand up in front of the class. And he stood up and he said, "My name's so-and-so, and I'm adopted," and told his story. But he was immediately put down by the other kids in the class because he was adopted. And he said that just changed everything, because he had thought himself, well, I don't think he didn't really think of himself as special, but he thought he was the same as everybody else, but that made him realize that he wasn't. He was different. So he found a way so that he got the attention that by being fun loving. He said, "I lost my cape, but I just tried to have fun at school and make everybody like me because I'm adopted." And, it just made a difference. And I was thinking about that. And then I was reading another story, a couple of things, where one gentleman who was adopted and went home and told his dad, and his dad said to him, "Well, you can go back to school tomorrow and you can tell that child who said this that you were chosen. And you can tell him, my parents chose me. Your parents got stuck with you." But is that something that you could consider as a good answer for that? Or is that making the other child feel as bad as he's made you feel?
No, I think it's a great answer. I mean, it's something that I guess especially my mother, my adopted mother, Daphne, told me. But I didn't believe it. I had always doubted it. I'd always wondered why am I here? Why, I'm being raised by these people that aren't related to me in any way, shape or form, but I think as a parent, it's a very good answer to give any child that's kind of experiencing this, to say you were chosen, because it does change it. I guess it does change the optics slightly, but for me, it was something I didn't believe myself. And I think if anyone could have come up with a rational answer for me to give to anyone that was questioning this, and I wouldn't have believed it, because once that thing had happened, my brain was scrambled. Looking back on it, I'm 52 years old now, and I still look back and think, my goodness me, that was a real change in my entire life. It really did. It had a profound effect on my education, my outlook on life, how I even have relationships, I guess. So yeah, but I think any parent is right to say that to their child, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, but you said you had your parents, they were good, they were loving parents for you. So what stands out most when you think of them?
I was very lucky. I was very, very lucky who I was adopted by. My mother, Daphne, God rest her soul, she died many years ago now. But she raised me. She was a school teacher, and then by the time she retired, she was a deputy head of a very big school in South London. But she was always the person I went to talk to. My dad was very different. My dad, John, was very successful solicitor in London. He was in charge of Westminster City Council's planning division for the legal kind of side of things. So if your listeners might not know, but Westminster is where Buckingham Palace is, where Westminster Abbey is, where the Catholic Church is in Victoria Street. He was in charge of all of that. No planning went ahead without his say-so and his signature. So he had a really good job, very, very committed. I don't think my dad had a day off in the 35 years he was at Westminster. So I had a very different relationship with my dad. But my mum, Daphne, I was raised by her, and she was very inspirational in my life. She raised me. I think she was the person I can trust. If I had any issues growing up, she would always be the one I would go to. I would never approach my dad with any personal stuff or any kind of, I've messed up, I need to talk about, it was never my dad. It was always Daphne I went to speak to, and she was great. She really was. And yeah.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I would always go to my mother, never to my dad.
Yep.
You had an older brother who was also adopted. Was he at the same school you were at?
Yeah, Jonathan, we went to the same school, went to the same primary school, went to the same junior school, and we also went to the same secondary school. Jonathan was also adopted. He was born in Wales, and we are like chalk and cheese. We still are. I get on I love my brother Jonathan to bits. He is my brother and that's it. But we are so far apart on what we like and what we don't like together. He likes football, I like rugby. He likes red, I like blue. It's the way we've always been. I think the only thing we have ever agreed on is we like Star Wars. But that's
okay.
So, but no, I've got a very good relationship with him, and growing up was. It was because I had so many emotional issues, I think, as a child. It kind of, he didn't seem to care that he was adopted, or he didn't have any issues with it, or didn't worry. Jonathan was never a worrier. He never has been, never will be. He just gets on with life and just goes with it. Whereas I'm, like I said, the complete opposite. But yeah, we had an interesting relationship growing up. I don't think we got on, but we weren't particularly close until maybe our adult years. I think when we both, we both settled down, I think that's when we kind of really did start having a good relationship together. But there was no issues, there was no problems at all.
Did he stand up for you in school?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah. There was one incident in particular where he certainly did. And he had some good friends who knew me as well. So they always looked out for me. But no, Jonathan did always stand up for me. But at home, no way. I was always the dark sheep.
And you were always the dark sheep. So do you think that's part of nature from your family?
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. I mean, we talk about this later, I guess, but I went on to meet my family and we were very similar. No question about it. I mean, my brother was my natural brother. Even when my wife Maggie met him for the first time, she couldn't believe it. She her jaw was on the floor when she saw our mannerisms were just identical. She said, "You are brothers. There's no question about it." And we were raised separately. So, yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to your school years. So,
yes,
you said that you ran away from home at one point. I think you said at the age of 8 was what you told me. Mm-hmm. Now, what was going through your mind when you did that?
This kind of marries up to around about the time period where I had the incident at school where I told somebody that I was adopted. And And as I said, it caused major anxiety, and it kind of questioned my relationship and everything. And so whenever I had an argument with my parents, I'd always throw it back in their face, maybe, or, you're not my family and all this rubbish. But there was an incident that happened. It was, I remember it quite vividly. It was September I just had my 8th birthday. So yeah, this was the time when everything was kind of coming into fruition. And we were down visiting my dad's family's home down in Maidstone, which is in Kent in England. And we used to go down there regularly to see my grandfather, and he'd passed away by this point. So we were down there having a visit at the bungalow where he used to live. And I clearly had an argument with one of my family members. Something stupid happened, and I just ran away. I just went, screw this, I'm going. And I just went for a walk. And this walk ended up with me walking down the M20 motorway. And it was probably around about 6 miles. I think I've Google mapped it. I look at the route still now and think, oh my God, a little 8-year-old kid just walking down this little village road heading towards the motorway. It was around about 6 miles from where my grandfather lived to where I went onto the motorway. And I just walked. I was looking for my family, I guess. I think I was just confused. I didn't know what I was doing. And I ended up walking up this motorway for probably a good 2 miles. So this little kid walking up this road. I mean, over here we got interstate, so you got 2 lanes. Well, then it was 3 lanes. So I had all these cars speeding past me at 70, and this little kid walking down the road. And I kind of picture it now, thinking, my goodness me, what on earth was I thinking? But it was just how it was with me. I was picked up by the police, put in a police car with a police dog in the back. I remember it distinctly. And the police had obviously been notified by my family that I was missing. And I was escorted back rather sheepishly. And I got home, and my parents they were not pleased with me, obviously. But no one kind of asked me why I did it. They were just angry at me, and they were clearly worried, which they had every right to be. But that incident had a huge impact on my life. That's when the worry started, because it questioned why I did that. Why did I do that behavior? Why did I put my life at such a high risk? And it just made the worry and anxiety in my life so much more. I can't describe it, Janet. It was.
When you ran away, were you trying to get somewhere, or were you trying to get away from something?
Maybe a bit of both. Maybe I guess I was trying to maybe look for my family. Not that I would have found them, but I think I just would have. I think maybe it was a bit of maybe 50-50. Maybe it was just running away. Maybe it was, I need to find my family. I don't know. But I was very lost and very alone at that time. And but I could never explain to anyone why I did it. And no one really asked. It was kind of, not the asked thing to do. And but as I said, that just made things even worse at school for me, because there was always that question in the back of my mind as to why I did that. But now I realize it's because I was just very confused with my family.
You described yourself as a terrible student. What did school feel like for you day to day, when you had to actually get up and go to school?
Hated it. Absolutely hated school. School to me was literally, I didn't understand why I was there. I didn't understand education. It was just get through each day. But also at the same time, when I was a kid growing up, I had a lot of health issues around my ears. I had a lot of operations. I was always in and out of hospital, and there was a lot of extra things going on in my life that kind of disrupted school for me. But no, school was just, academically, I was awful. I think I was probably one of the worst students in my year. I didn't understand learning. Learning to me was not even a functional thing. It's something I can never, I couldn't do it. I just, and when I went to my GCSEs or O levels or whatever they're called now, I really did mess up. But there were a few things at school that I got into. They weren't academic. One of them, I quite enjoyed doing drama. I think that was good because I was brought up next to a friend of ours who used to do amateur dramatics. So we always used to do school play. We used to do plays in the summertime when I was a kid. So that to me was always something I enjoyed doing. But one of the other things that I really got into, we were very lucky at our school. We had our head of year was, I think it was the youngest national archery judge in the whole of the country, and he had an archery club at the school. And I just thought, I'll give that a go, see what it's like. And I really, really got into it. That to me ended up to being my peaceful place. I was terrible when I started. It probably took me about 3 years before I started having the confidence to know that I could do this. But then I used to shoot every weekend, every Tuesday and Friday at school. I used to go after school and we used to shoot. And, I got into it. I used to do tournaments. I used to travel the country. But then when I started getting really good, I ended up being in some national tournaments. I was also in an event called the London Youth Games, which is a big event in London, where every single borough has 4 representatives go and represent their borough for their sport. And I was chosen on 2 years in a row to do that for Bromley. We came 4th out of 32, so we did pretty good. But I used to shoot a lot, but it was my place of peace. Archery for me, I can highly recommend to anyone, if they want to relax, learn to shoot a bow, because it helps drop your heart rate down. It really, I taught myself how to relax on the shooting line. It was quite a profound experience for me. And by the end of it, by the time I was 17, 18, I was shooting 100 yards. I was hitting gold at 100 yards all the time. And I could have possibly gone on to apply for the Olympics, or certainly I was a national level. I could have gone for the trials, but when I was 18, you discover pubs and you discover girlfriends, and that all fell apart. So,
but archery was your safe place to go to when you were at school, right? Was there problems? Did you have to have certain grade level in order to be able to be in the archery to compete? Because I know in the U.S., if you're going to college on a football scholarship or something like that, you have to maintain grades in order to maintain your scholarship, right? The same as when you're in school, you have to maintain grades in order to play. So was there anything like that in England, or were you able to do that with no fallback?
Oh yeah, I mean, thank God there wasn't such a rule, because I would never have shot in my life, Janet. It was, I'll tell you how bad I was at school. When I got my O levels or GCSEs, I got 3 Gs. I didn't even know there was a G grade. I was that bad. I got a G for geography, which was pretty cool, but no, I was terrible. And the only thing I was even good at was probably woodwork. I used to be really good at that. That's when I got good grades, and I was very good with my hands. But when it came to academia and kind of learning stuff, it was terrible. French geography, and there was another biology. I think I got G's in, and the rest of it was the C's and D's. But yeah, I remember opening my my exam results and just seeing G's and just, what's this? It wasn't great, that's for sure. It didn't mean great.
What kind of support did you have for that anxiety, through your teachers or through your parents? How did they all handle this for you and to try and help you?
That's an interesting question. I always used to have a lot of support from my mum. She was always, she was a school teacher. She would do anything she could to help me. But I think they also realized there was a lot more deep-rooted stuff going on with me that had to be addressed as well. I didn't receive any help for that at all. The school I was at was it's pretty terrible school, to be honest. My wife Maggie says, she said, if you were in America, she said, there's no way you would have got those grades. And it's true. The English education system sucks. It's a very, Pink Floyd got it right. They really did. It's just another brick in the wall. It's true. Listen to the lyrics, and it quintessentially explains the British education system. They just get you through it and then just spit you out. There's no there doesn't seem any goal setting. There doesn't seem any extra support that you can have. It was, plus you have to wear a shirt and tie, which just, that's just not normal for any kid. So, but no, school for me was not my happy place. I used to wake up every day and dread it.
Did you look for excuses to stay home?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah. If I
and did your mom fall for them?
I never used to. I wouldn't say I have a faked illness, because that's something I've never. It's just I've never done that, and I would never do that. But I used to maybe push the envelope a little bit more than maybe I should have done. I could have probably gone in on quite a few days when I was sick. But at the time I had a lot of problems with my ears. I had other medical problems that. They're pretty personal, but I had to deal with a lot of stuff when I was that age, and but no, any excuse to go to school, happy days.
So, can you remember any specific moments where you felt misunderstood or judged?
Judged, gosh, maybe I think maybe sometimes people didn't understand the emotional side of the emotions of what I was doing. People just, this was the 80s, and it was just get on with it. That was the attitude, and I could never get on with stuff. If I had something on my mind that just plays on my mind, I could never just concentrate and just get on with school. It's just something I've never been able to do. And I think there were a few occasions where I could have maybe, where I certainly was misunderstood. But I can't really come up with a direct example, but I know it happened. That's for sure.
Okay. And did you compare yourself to your brother academically?
Always. Yeah, Jonathan was the brain box. I mean, he went to university. He did A levels, straight A student, went to university. Went to Sussex University, did American studies. Funnily enough, that's quite funny thinking that I'm now living in America. But he did a 4-year degree in American studies. Did really well for himself, and always compared himself to Jonathan. Always did. It's just a sibling thing to do, isn't it? I suppose but we never competed for the same thing. So that kind of made things a little bit easier, I suppose. So he had a much better relationship with my dad than I did. I think they were, because my dad was very academic, clearly being a lawyer. So, and I was just the dumb kid. So.
I'm thinking back to my sister, who is older than I am, and she was very good academically. She started studying the first day back at school and would be a straight A student. And of course, she got along well with my dad. He was an electrical engineer, and academically, whereas I'm at school and I'm there having fun and enjoying myself and love going to school and socializing. But I was never that great at anything. Math was what stood out for me. But I didn't go on to university or do that either. So,
yeah.
So
me neither.
Looking back now, mm-hmm. Do you still believe you were a terrible student, or do you see something different?
I see something very different. There was a lot of things that was not my fault, but it was also beyond my control, I think, because I was so young, and I was pretty damaged from the whole adoption kind of thing, and it sculpted my life so much that it just affected my whole outlook on life and education. And I think if I was given more support, maybe in school, or if I had been given some sort of counselling, maybe I don't know, maybe things could have been different. But I think if I was to revisit school now, it's just easy. But kind of look back at what I failed and think, why the heck did I do that? Well, that's just strange. But
so, how do you think adoption could have been explained to you in a better way? So when you got to school and you knew you were adopted, you knew what it meant. Do you think there was a way when you're earlier? Because I always wonder, what's a good age to let people know they were adopted? Do you be like your parents, who let you know that you were adopted from all the time, that you knew? Or do you wait until somebody's a certain age to let them know? Is there a better age to
No,
learn, or is it just your understanding of what it is and how to cope with it?
I think you should. Yeah, I think you should always know from a very young age. I mean, like I said, I didn't quite explain what it meant, but I always knew that it was a thing. But then maybe if people can kind of sit down and maybe explain things a lot more than just saying, "Oh, you were given away," and blah blah blah. But if I think having a therapist, even for a child, could make such a difference. It can make a huge difference in someone's life. I think that would be a good approach. I think to maybe see if there's any professional help that can kind of just talk someone through that process and try to make you realize that none of it's not your fault. Because I think growing up, being adopted, you're like, well, why me? Why was I the one that was, thrown out by my family? And I didn't know anything about my family really until I was 14 when I found out other little things about my family until I met them when I was 18. And but I think having a therapeutic intervention or some sort of therapeutic help would have maybe settled my mind a little bit more. May make me realize that these things aren't bad. It's just it's just part of life. It's just how these things go.
So if you could talk to someone today, tell somebody today who's adopted and going through something similar to what you went through, how would you tell them to handle it? How would you advise them?
I think slowly. Yeah, I'd say don't. Gosh, it's a hard one because I think people are different. I think some, like I was saying, my brother Jonathan, he didn't care. He was like, yeah, whatever. But me, I was just me, and I just dealt with it differently. But I think I just that's a real tough one. I don't know if I can answer that.
Yeah, because no matter what, there are people today who are adopted who be like your brother. They don't worry. They just go. Life goes on, and they're on day to day. But there's going to be a lot of people out there that go through the same anxiety that you did. And those are the ones that we need to talk to, and those are the ones that we need to let them know that they're not alone and that there are ways to handle it. So,
oh yeah, definitely. And now obviously with with the internet and things, I sound so old saying that, but there's a lot more communication that you can have with other adopted people. I guess there's podcasts like you're doing now, Janet, and there's other things online for self-help and making people not feel so alone. I think having the internet when back in the 80s would have been pretty cool. Maybe I don't know, maybe, but I think it's a very different life to what we had. When back in the 70s and 80s, it was a very different world, and I think there's a lot more out there now. Where we're able to have conversations like we're doing now, where this would never have been a thing back in those days. So I think conversations like this can really help people. I think it can also help adoptive parents as well. I think that's really important as well. So,
and generally, people today don't go up and say, you wouldn't come up to me and say, "Hi, I'm Chris, I'm adopted." Right?
No,
that's not something that happens in conversation. So, not everybody knows about it.
No, I mean, I've got friends that probably I've got friends that probably don't even realise I'm adopted, even back in England, and might not even know. It's not a conversational piece sometimes. I think maybe when I was speaking about my other family, maybe people would question that, but no, I generally, as a rule of thumb, I wouldn't just come out and tell people that I'm adopted, because now it seems a lot less relevant. It's just like, well, I'm a 50-year-old dude, stuff happens, and here we are. But no,
well, life goes on. All right. If a teacher is listening right now, okay, if a teacher is listening right now, what would you want them to know about kids like you?
It could get messy. It could get very emotional. You could see behaviour that you've probably never seen before, especially if my behaviour at school was always good. I always make sure I was a straight A. Although I was terrible academically, I was always well behaved. I don't think I even had a detention in school. I used to have my off behaviour away from school, and I was always fearful of school repercussions, I guess. But I think teachers should always be aware if you've got a child in your classroom who's adopted, because one day it can kick off. And if it did kick off, you need to know that there's a potential reason why this is kicking off, and why this student is now throwing a chair across the table, or punching people, or punching walls, or could be a whole host of behaviour that you've never seen before. So it's good that I think everyone in education needs to be aware that they've got a child in their classroom who's adopted, because it is different. It's you've got to be a little bit softer, I guess. I think, But to any teachers listening, I would just say just make sure that you're aware, and there's potential for trouble, because it can happen at any time. So,
and to the student, what would you say to them?
Talk to your adopted parents. Talk to your teacher. Sit down and talk to your teacher about it, and explain to them why you're worried, or why you're stressed, or why you're angry, and you may be surprised that you might get some good advice. My mother in particular always gave me great advice, but sometimes you get good advice from other people who aren't part of the situation. But be careful who you talk to. So.
Okay, so you found archery, and that was your relief part, right? And that felt different from school. And you said it helped you out emotionally, it helped you feel calmer, it slowed your heart rate down, and you won some awards for that. So would you recommend to students today that they look for something within the school that they can do that can help them?
Yeah, something extracurricular, definitely, because it might change your opinion of what school's about. If you find something you can genuinely enjoy and you can get really into and you're very passionate about, I would definitely suggest that. I mean, I would find a sport, find an activity, find something that you could do, but within the school. Because it doesn't. I think if I hadn't have had archery, I would have left my school with I don't even want to talk about that place. I don't even want to know about it. But because I had archery, I've got fond memories of school, which I'm always grateful for. If anyone can get a chance to find some extracurricular activity within the school, do it. But definitely try archery. I'd highly recommend anyone just give it a go, because it's a good thing to get involved in. I think just for your mental health. So.
I don't know if they have archery in schools here in the US and Canada.
Oh, okay. Find a club. Try a club, or I took up rugby when I was 18 as well, and that was probably not the best thing for my back and my health, but it was a very good outlet for me. You just got to find the right things, I think, and something that you're capable of doing, and as long as you're learning and you're enjoying it and you're getting something out of it, then go for it. That's for sure. As long as it's not doing your health any damage, then go for it. That's for sure.
All right, because I think that was really important for us to talk to the students and the people that are out there that are young and they're going through the adoption and how they feel and how to talk to people again. But now we get to the part where when you were 18, and that's when you said you first wanted to know about your biological parents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what were you hoping to find back then when you were 18?
Probably rainbows and unicorns. I don't know. You always have these kind of weird fantasies or kind of imaginations as to what your family was like, and you kind of don't expect the chaos that you're going to walk in on. You don't expect the kind of issues that you're going to walk in on. Funnily enough, when I was 14, I found out that I didn't even realize this, but when I was 14, my mum just let it slip that I had 2 siblings. And I found out I had a brother and a sister, which was that was another add-on to the confusion, because my birth mother had 2 kids and then she adopted me, and that was another issue that just created a whole load more anxiety. I kind of made it even worse, I think. But I've always had an interest to meet my family, and so before my 18th birthday, I went to the organisation that my adoption was done through. It's a charity called the Children's Society, which I do believe is still something in England. It's a Church of England charity. So I went to them and went through the counselling and went through the arduous process of doing the application. And I remember I went away after my first appointment. Then I was called back for my second appointment. And that's when my file was sitting on the desk, and the social worker went through everything with me. And I found out that I had a brother, older brother and older sister, who I just mentioned. But I also found out that I had a half brother and a half sister after me, which is in the later notes. And that really did cause, not that I had a problem with it, but it caused another bit of element of confusion as to saying, so right, you've had my older brother and half sister, my brother and sister, then you had me, you adopted me, but then a year or 2 later you have 2 other kids. And my goodness me, that was hard, because it made me think, well, why me? Another why me thing. And it just snowballed from there, really. But I actually arranged to meet my mother. I was given her phone number, and I phoned up and said, hey, it's Chris. And we had a little chat and everything was great. And we arranged to meet up at Trafalgar Square up by Nelson's Column, which is quite a venue to meet your mum, I suppose. And I went up there in it was September, just after my 18th birthday. And it's quite busy, as you can imagine. And I just remember seeing this lone woman with her back to me. And I knew instantly it was her, and I didn't even see her face. So I just went up and just tapped her on the shoulder and, met her and gave her a hug and said, hi, how you doing? And we hit it off straight away. We went I think we went to Pizza Hut, and then we went to a couple of bars, had a few drinks, kind of just getting to know each other, a lot of small talk and asking questions. And then I was invited up the week after to go and meet the whole family. And which I did. I went up the following Sunday. I went up with my girlfriend at the time, which I was very grateful to have her with me, because I was so nervous. It was quite a nerve-wracking experience, and it was. I went up to Luton, met my mum on the train platform, then got in the car, drove home, got out the car, walked in side door, and standing there is my sister. And just gave her a hug and, hi, how you doing? And, all very awkward, not awkward, but it was kind of nice, but everything very low key. And then I turn around and there's this guy standing there, and it was my brother Ian. And he just comes out, puts his hand out, gives him shakes his hand, and gave each other a big hug. And we hit it off straight away. Me and Ian got on very, very well from the offset. And then I walked, so after we said hello to him, I then walked into the lounge. There was my half sister, my half brother, and my biological mother's husband, Terry. And I turned around and I met my gran. And I've mentioned this to you before, Janet, but I'd been told that my gran had been on television a little bit, but I didn't kind of realize. I'd never seen a picture of her. I didn't know who she was. But as soon as I met her, I recognized her. I immediately recognized her. I thought, I know you. And she'd been on some big TV shows back in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. She used to be on Benny Hill. She was one of the first people. She was one of the actresses that used to be on Benny Hill. There's some funny sketches with her that are on YouTube, I see. She's been on pop videos I used to see as a kid. And it was just a really strange meeting, because I just felt we got on very well, me and her. And it was lovely to meet her, because she passed away maybe within the year of me meeting her. So I was very grateful to have been given the opportunity to have met her and to find out some more about her. And she was quite a remarkable lady. So I was really glad I got the opportunity for that. But yes, I met my family and then discovered the whole story, and it was way worse than I could have imagined. was pretty tough. It was very tough for my birth mother, and my dad was not a nice guy. I think that's an understatement. The family had some pretty major damage done by him. I'm not going to go into any details, but it wasn't pretty. And that just caused more worry for me as well. It was just every time I got to know things more and more, my worry and my anxiety levels just went up and up and up.
All right. So Ian was your brother, and is he the one that you were alike? The two of you were alike?
Yes. Ian was he was lovely. He was just the nicest, the most laid back guy you can ever meet. I mean, when I met my mum, Teresa, she described Ian as he's just laid back, and it was a perfect description. He's just, I mean, he did very, very well for himself. He was right at the forefront when computers were happening, and he had an amazing career in IT. So,
okay, but you say he was laid back, but that's not you. You're not laid back.
I can be. I can be very laid back, but when I'm not worrying about this stuff, I'm very laid back, Janet. I'm quite a relaxed. That's why it's so strange. I'm normally quite a relaxed kind of person, but we were very alike. We had the same interests. We had the same outlook on life. We had, but it was our mannerisms that was the real key between us.
How would you describe yourself as nature versus nurture?
Gosh, that's
what parts come from your biological parents, and what parts come from your adoptive parents?
Probably 50-50. I'd say there's a lot of similarities, a lot of things that we've got in common with, but I've got a lot of when it's nurture, it's definitely from my mother, my adopted mother, Daphne. I got a lot of my personality from her and my outlook on life. She was a very caring person. She was just a lovely person. And I think my personality has kind of been nurtured by that. But the nature side of things, I mean, as I said, we're, very, very similar to my brother in particular. We had the very, very similar interests as well. So,
and you said Ian was the glue of the family, correct?
Yes, he was. He was absolutely the glue of the family. He was the one that didn't put up with he didn't care about gossip. He didn't care about chaos. He just got on with his life and made sure he had a good, happy life. I mean, very sadly, I moved to America in 2015, and he got diagnosed with cancer within the year of me coming here. And he sadly didn't make it. And in 2019, he passed away from lung cancer after a very long, hard battle he had. But right up to the end, he was just Ian. I went to see him a week before he died, and he was just the same. It was just his outlook to life and dealing with life's problems was just inspiring, so inspiring. And he's someone I'll never forget. He was out of all the positive things of meeting my family, Ian was it, as far as I'm concerned. So,
and sometimes you said that you wish you'd never connected, and that's a powerful statement, right? So what can you share about what's behind that feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's always in the back of my mind. Should I? Shouldn't I? And I think if it hadn't been for Ian, I would have absolutely have just gone. Forget this. It's just stupid. It's just. I think I was made to feel welcome. But I was never really part of the family. Or that's fine. I had some issues later on with certain members of the family. It was, and especially after Ian died. I haven't seen anyone since 2019. The last time I was there was at his funeral. And it was during that time that I think, why did I do this? Why did I put myself out there? And why did I do this? Because, the family now has been completely disbanded since Ian passed away. So there was a lot of friction.
Do you feel that the searching brought you some peace, or did it just add more questions to your life?
I guess it brought me peace, actually. It made me, I guess it did make me, I guess it did give me some peace, I think. It just, because because I was able to move away. I was able to walk away and say, I've had enough. I don't want really anything more to do with this situation. And, so I think it was good for me. I think it was a good move. As I said, the last time I was in England was his funeral on April the 11th of 2019. And I left the day after, and I've not been back to the England since. I've got no interest in ever going home again. So.
And no one wants to come over here to visit you?
I have my brother Jonathan. He comes over every couple of years. I've got a very good friend of mine, Mark. He comes over. He's someone I've met. I've known Mark longer than I've known my wife Maggie, and he's one of the country's top doctors in his profession. So it's always fun. He always comes over and relaxes, and we always have fun when he's here. So,
okay, and then your brother Jonathan
visitors,
is the one that's in Canada, right?
Yeah, he doesn't live in Canada, but he's got he actually tracked down his birth family. He always said he wasn't going to, but because we had, I think there was my dad remarried after my mum passed away quite a few years ago, and it just affected the both of us really. I think Jonathan is a very loyal person. I think he just thought, well, if you're going to do this and just ignore us, then I'm going to go and meet my family. And he did. And typical of Jonathan, everything works out well for him. He located his family in Canada and in Ottawa. Found out his parents were still together. He also had a grandmother who lived in Liverpool, and he also had a sister. So things were just as it always is with Jonathan. Things always work out for him, and he's got a lovely family over in Canada as well. And I'm just really pleased that he met them and it worked out well for him. I really am. I was when he told me he was going to track them down. He was quite nervous about telling me, and I was like, please just do it. You've got to do it. I'm fully support what you're doing because I knew he can handle the BS if any BS was headed his way. He doesn't put up with any rubbish. So, yeah.
So looking back, what do you understand now that you didn't as a child?
That adoption isn't the end of the world. It's the start of something. It's the start of something new for your life. It's a new start. I think if I had been raised within my family, my life would have been very different in a maybe a more negative way, because my mother couldn't have looked after me. It wouldn't have been great. But I was given the opportunity to be raised by two parents that loved me and have my brother as well, who was pretty steadfast. I think adoption should be seen as a positive start. As long as you're with the right family and your family are supportive and they understand that one day you're going to want to go off and meet your family. Got to accept that. If you're not able to accept that, then you shouldn't really maybe adopt a child. I think you've got to understand that is a possibility and that could happen any time after you're 18. I'm actually quite anti what's known as open adoption. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that can lead to more problems sometimes if someone's able to keep in contact with their parents as they grow up, because that to me just is quite a foreign kind of policy to have. But that's my own opinion. So
yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that either, about the difference between open adoption or closed adoption. I know there's a book called The Primal Wound, and if you read that, it tells about how close the biological mom and the fetus are. And when the fetus is taken away, when the baby's born and it's taken away, then they lose that connection. And I didn't realize how devastating that can be to a child, because back when I did it in 1970, nobody ever talked about that. There was no research about that or anything to know. So, but apparently that is quite a shock, and it gives the children the abandonment issue from when they were born, and it's hard for a lot of children to deal with. I don't know if keeping the open adoption where you can be there is the answer. But
yeah, I
don't have to go through that.
I personally don't agree with it. No, exactly. But
Okay.
no, I'm glad that didn't happen with me either, Janet. But no, yeah.
Has your definition of family changed over time?
Yeah, maybe. I think growing up having a confusing kind of outlook on family and what it kind of means. I guess so. I mean, I'm I'm very lucky to have my in-laws, who I'm very grateful to have my wife Maggie. I feel like I'm part of their family. Um, I think that the how can I put this? Family is very important, but I think it's not the be all and end all. I think a lot of people can put too much emphasis on it. But I think growing up was very confusing for me because of the family dynamic. So, but I'm very grateful to be in the family I'm in now. That's for sure.
I know I used to tell my children, my daughter especially, her friends were more important than her family. And I said, friends are for now, but your family's forever. But when I look back, when it comes to adoption, it's not your family is forever anymore. So I have to change that kind of outlook for myself as well. But what does peace look like for you today?
Peace. I'm living in Iowa. I've got a wonderful, peaceful life. I'm literally living the peaceful life, Janet. From going from South London I'm in a very rural town here. My wife Maggie keeps saying, she goes, this move has been really good for you, and it has been. It's been quite remarkable. I love, I'm able to feel at peace. I'm able to, because of the situation we're in now, where we run a business from home. I'm able to do things to take care of myself. I do yoga every day. I do exercise. I walk my beautiful dogs every day. I've got a very peaceful life here where I'm not really disturbed by anyone. I try and keep external things away from me as much as possible. Like I said, I've decided not to really know my family anymore, and there was a reason for that, because I needed peace in my life and I needed to move on. And that was the best decision I ever made. When I made that decision, I was going through some major health issues myself as well. I had a really bad spinal cord injury when I was in England and had horrendous effects on my life and my health. And I was 300 pounds 4 or 5 years ago. And as soon as I decided to walk away from the family, I concentrated on myself and my health and everything else, the weight just dropped off. I've lost 100 pounds. I'm very health conscious now, a lot more so than I used to be. And I'm at peace with everything, to be honest. I think if today or tomorrow
Out
is
of
my last
curiosity,
day, I've had a good life.
how did you meet your wife?
That's an interesting story. November 1999. I split up with someone. I was in a relationship with for about 3 years, and we split up, and ended up not having any friends after that. So I discovered, and this was the time when my mum was going through her cancer treatment as well. So I didn't have any outlet at all. So I discovered clubbing. I used to go clubbing every weekend in London. I discovered house music and DJing and this amazing life. And I was out with my friends in a club in Vauxhall, South London, right opposite the MI5 building, which is quite cool. Literally right over the road from, it's the equivalent of the Pentagon here. And I was in there at 4 o'clock in the morning, as you are, wandering around, and sat down. I was chatting to this random American girl. I said, "Oh, my brother's married to an American," and we just chatted from there. And then I met Maggie. She just walked in, and we hit it off instantly, and we immediately started dating. And she came back to America after we met. We met in November. She came back in January to finish off her final semesters of college, and then she moved back, and we got married about 6 months later. So in Iowa, funny enough, the church, I can literally see the church from here. So yeah. So no, we've been together. We just had our 25th wedding anniversary this year. So
Congratulations.
yeah, we've yeah, thank you. We run a nice business together. We've I had a very long career in England working in social care. So going from social care to now doing online marketing is very different, but it's been a good change. We're able to work together and build what we're doing here. And, touch wood, hopefully the robots won't take our jobs just yet. So we'll keep this gravy train going.
I know those robots are going to take a lot of jobs. So what was it? Somebody said the other day
they are sad.
The skilled tradespeople will be around for a long time, and the people that are neurodivergent because they can think outside the box and create something that we all need. Everybody else, watch out.
Yep, that's right.
Okay,
that's right.
So Chris,
all I can say is
I want to say thank you very much for your honesty today. I've really enjoyed talking to you and hearing your story. Your story is such a powerful reminder that even in loving homes, there can still be quiet struggles and no one sees. And I want to speak directly to you listening right now. Do you know an adoptee, a child, a teenager, even an adult who is struggling with anxiety, who feels like they don't quite fit, like they're falling behind, like something just isn't right, but they don't have the words to explain it? Maybe this story wasn't just a story. Maybe it was a mirror. Please share this episode with them, because sometimes hearing "it's not just me" can change everything. And if this conversation meant something to you, don't let it end here, because these stories deserve to be heard. And if you have a story of your own, visit www.rootsandbranchesadoptionstories.com or call 615-870-6433. Your story matters, and telling it might be exactly what someone else needs. I'm Janet Monroe at KFED Radio. Every root has a story, and every branch is still growing. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Roots and Branches Adoption Stories, where every tree has roots, every life has branches, and every adoption has a story. Got an adoption story you want to tell? Want to learn more about adoption stories? Then visit rootsandbranchesadoptionstories.com.